Dr. Sharma, I recently have been introduced to Hinduism, and I was wondering, there's so many spiritual texts in Hinduism, and with other traditions like Christianity, you can sort of get the sense, you read the Bible, there's one text, but there's so many texts in Hinduism, and I was wondering, how does one even begin to approach the religion, and how do you know what you should be reading, or what to do with all of that, with all of those texts?
Yeah, Hinduism, yes, there is an embarrassment of riches. So far as sacred texts are concerned within Hinduism, I think the question actually has two parts. One is, of course, which scripture should you choose to study as a student of Hinduism? But I also read in it the implication that with so many scriptures, do the Hindus not feel confused about which of them to read? I mean, how do they negotiate this profusion, this pleroma, this richness of scriptures or scriptural texts within Hinduism? The answer to both the questions initially is probably the same, in the sense that although there are these many texts, some of which you referred to, and there are many others which could be referred to, actually somebody has even made the calculation that it would take 70 lives to go through all the scriptures which are considered sacred in Hinduism. But what makes the situation manageable is the fact that certain texts stand out. One such text is the Bhagavad Gita, which has enjoyed a status of great sanctity for many centuries now, and for various reasons in modern times has actually come closest to being a universal text within Hinduism. It is also not as much appreciated that another Hindu text, the Durga Saptashati, which extols the glory of the goddess, is almost as popular in Hinduism and read and recited all over the country. So there are some major texts, so to say, to which a person naturally turns, whether one is looking at the tradition from the outside or from the inside. But there are some other ways also in which Hinduism deals or tries to deal with this issue. One of them is the institution of the Guru. This potential for confusion, which you pointed out in the context of texts, also exists within Hinduism in the context of the various yogas or the margas to adopt, which of them to adopt, for instance, as one's spiritual path. And so it is the role of the Guru, if one has one, to indicate the text appropriate for you, given your situation in life, both in terms of the stage in life you are at, whether you are a child, grown up, and so on, or the station in life which you occupy. And he uses these criteria both for indicating the text as well as the path to be chosen.
Well, and so I know that many Hindus have gurus, but not everybody would have a guru. Is that true? And what would those people do?
Yes. Those people who turn to the text which attracts them most or best. And in doing so, they would be following another principle of Hinduism, which is enshrined in the concept of the Ishta Devata. This is the idea that out of the pantheon of Hinduism, the Hindu can choose any individual deity as the object of one's worship. One can choose more than one. One can change one's preferences over time. And these developments do not cause any awkwardness or embarrassment. The same principle can then readily be applied to the context of texts and not just deities. But although Hinduism has so many texts, you might be surprised if I said that Hinduism really is a context-sensitive rather than a text-sensitive religion.
What do you mean by context, context-rich? We were just talking about all of these texts that are important to look at and study, and can you say more about that, the context?
Yeah. You will remember that I just said that the Hindu can choose any text from the many texts of Hinduism. If it is the Hindu who makes the choice, then the Hindu makes this choice on the basis of the context the Hindu is in, on the basis of his life situation, his context or her context. So although the person is apparently choosing a text, but the text is being determined, the choice is being determined by where the person is located in terms of one's life situation, namely the context.
Can I ask another question?
Sure.
So then is there a sense that the thing that attracts you, the text or whatever it is that comes to you is maybe appropriate for you, or?
Yes, appropriate for you in the sense that you think it appropriate. However, I think the remark I made earlier, the paradoxical remark I made earlier, might appear less puzzling if we compare the Hindu situation with that of the Abrahamic religions. So for the Christian, there is one text. The Christian has to be text sensitive in the sense that the person has to act in accordance with what the text says, and even more so in the case of the Muslim. But in the case of the Hindu, it is the context of the Hindu which decides the choice of the text, not the text itself. The text does not choose the person. The person chooses the text. But this statement also can be elaborated in a slightly different way. when rules are laid down in Hinduism, or even when spiritual instructions are given, it is emphasized that these have to relate to the actual condition of the person involved. So that one has to be guided not merely by the letter of the text, but also by the spirit. To give you an example, and this example is from the life of Shankara, who is supposed to be a great upholder of orthodoxy. One of the positions held within this orthodox form of Hinduism is that the Upanishads, sacred texts of Hinduism, which constitute the last portion of the Vedas, may only be read by the male members of the three higher so-called castes. So Shankar presumably adhered to this position. A story from his life that he was visiting a temple when he saw a leper outside the temple, and through his mind's eye he saw that he was ready for liberation. But he could not reveal the Upanishadic texts to this person as per the rules I just mentioned, the rules prevailing at the time. So what he did was to paraphrase the teaching of the Upanishad in secular language. So this is how Hinduism is context sensitive rather than text sensitive.